Oh, I know you guys can. Hello. Let's make sure you guys can actually hear me, because last time you guys couldn't. Just give me like a, hey guys, or hey Jess, I can actually hear you. Make sure before we get started for real. Just waiting for some confirmation from you guys before we get started. Can you guys hear me? Okay, perfect. Hello everyone, welcome to the match reaction for Arsenal going out of the FA Cup to a 10-man United team at home in pathetic fashion. Listen, how were the penalties? Because I didn't watch them. As soon as we went to penalties, I switched the game off and came here to get ready for the show. Like, there was no reason for me to sit there and watch us do penalties, because United are very good at penalties and we are weak-minded and pathetic. And so I was not surprised to check my phone and say, oh, we're out. I don't really know what to say. You know, it feels very repetitive to have the same issues over and over again. And, you know, obviously at the beginning of the season, a lot of us were being gaslit into thinking that this was going to be fine. This season was going to be fine. And I regret to inform you that we are not fine. Like, we are not fine. Early signs, early days in the season, it was pretty obvious that we didn't have enough and we were just scraping by if we were winning games. The red cards papered over the cracks of like reality, with people trying to rationalize, oh, well, we got all these red cards, but now we're not winning and there are no red cards. In fact, the team that we played against today had a man sent off and still went through. We were not peppering them. We were not creating dangerous chances. They were relatively comfortable, and the chances that we did create that were good chances were squandered really badly. Odegaard missing the penalty again. Just City would never do that. Let's just put that out there. It's never a pen, and I do think the referee was strange today. I did think that some things went our way, some things didn't, but I did think that the referee was not very good today, and something went our way that shouldn't have, and Manchester City put that in the back of the net, and they win and go off into the next round. We miss it, do not really create anything beyond that after they go down to 10 men, and then just go out pathetically in penalties. I mean, Kai Havertz, I'm hearing that he missed the penalty. I just think that, this was probably his worst game in an Arsenal shirt. And I think it's not so much about Kai Havertz just being like the worst player in the world or anything like that. It's just quite literally like the consequence of making the type of signing that you should never have made and then doubling down on it in the summer. I've said it a million times. It was a mistake, and it was an obvious mistake that we should have corrected this past summer. At literally the minute that Jesus goes down, and hopefully he's, the injury is not as bad as it looks, but it does look like it's going to be a bad injury and a long layoff just by being stretchered off and him covering up his face and everything. But at that literal moment, Sesko scores a banger from outside of the box, and this is literally a player that Arteta said would not be guaranteed minutes because of Kai Havertz. Fast forward to today, and Kai Havertz misses 2 sitters and a penalty. 60 million down the drain. It literally was 60 million down the drain. And it's not just him. It's not just him. And I don't want to make this the Havertz conversation because it's no longer on him anymore. If I'm Havertz and I'm sitting there at Chelsea and they hate me down and there's no guarantee I'm going to be important to this team in the future, of course I'm going to move to Arsenal and take the highest wages possible and just move over to another side of London. This is beyond Havertz at this point. He's not a striker and he's not a midfielder. This is beyond him at this stage. These types of performances that he's having are not uncharacteristic of this player. We've known about him for 3 or so years, and he's been known to have really poor performances in front of goal. So this is not really surprising. What's maybe not so surprising, but more disappointing is that Arsenal have neglected to really be humble and say, we fucked up. We shouldn't have listened to Mikel. We should have went out and got a striker and then instantly fixed it the next transfer window. And they neglected to do so. And these are the consequences of those actions. Now, you would say that, okay, well, we have problems scoring goals because in the last 2 games, funnily enough, we created more than enough to beat both teams at home. It wasn't the best football in the world, let's be honest, but we created more than enough at home. But we're not able to put the ball in the back of the net. Lucky for us, the transfer window is open, but we're already getting briefed that nothing is going to happen. And so I fear you guys, we're going into the era that we were in under Arsene Wenger, which is as long as we get into top 4, we're not going to invest anymore. 1 in, 1 out. If you sell enough to buy players, then, we'll do that. But it just doesn't look like the club is going to be serious. And again, these are just the consequences of your unseriousness. Very big consequences. On top of that, I know some people are going to say that Arteta coached a 4-0. You guys tell me if you think he coached a 4-0 or not. I'm just like, when you need a goal, the tactics don't really change. You really need to push more men forward. You need to take more risks. And, just changing a fullback for a fullback or a DM for a DM. I know we didn't have much on the bench, but you could at least throw more men forward. And when I mean throw more men forward, I mean not Gabriel. Gabriel shouldn't be the most adventurous player coming up from center back. If you're going to do that, freaking double down on it and play him as a 9. But we're just very susceptible to soft goals. We're very the soft underbelly is coming back, which was something that I thought that was gone from this team. We're very reluctant to attack, and every game that we're reluctant to attack, we don't get what we need to get. So this could end up being one of the most catastrophic weeks for Mikel Arteta, because we've essentially gone out of the Carabao Cup. I don't care what anybody says. We're not going to St. James and scoring 3 goals. Let's be so fucking for real right now. We're out of the Carabao Cup. We're also out of the FA Cup. And if we lose to Spurs at home this weekend, then we are 100% out of the title race, which we're already out of anyway, but we're just kind of going through the motions and pretending like we're still in it. Our performances are not that of a title contending team, but the numbers and where we are in the table, you can kind of pretend like we're still in it. And so this could be a catastrophic week, and it's just not that surprising, and it's disappointing. But usually before a game that we play against Man United, I am so nervous, so nervous. Today I felt nothing, absolutely nothing. I was like, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And I just felt like, it is what it is. And the apathy is well and truly setting in. The Emirates is quiet, and people are saying that they were booing in the stadium. The tide is turning, and it should turn. I'm sorry, but we all said at the beginning of the season that the manager needed to win a trophy. And I'm seeing people, try to, retract and go backwards, because I don't think they actually thought that he would go trophyless this season, but it's looking like a certainty. it's looking like a certainty. Out of the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, we're not, if Liverpool don't win the Premier League, can you guarantee it'll be Arsenal? And we're not going to win the Champions League. So of course we should be talking about the manager. The manager is the easiest thing to replace in the club. And the fact that we've made the manager the most important person here without the credentials of that of an arson is ridiculous. He should not be so safe. And I'm not surprised that more people are questioning, but it's just so weird that so many people thought that this past summer window was not an absolute atrocity. It was so underwhelming and not the type of window that you should have after 2 failed title challenges. So yeah, I think obviously there will be a lot of Arsenal fans protecting the manager and saying that he coached a 4-0, but the reality is that he begged for Kai Havertz. He had to get them to change their minds. And instead of saying, you know what, it didn't work out, the ego got in front of the importance of what we needed this past summer, because he should have been begging for Sesko to come to this club. He should have said, you will start over Kai Havertz. And he didn't. He didn't. And so this is the consequence of your ego being too big and putting your ego in front of the club. Also, that it's going to probably get lost in this, but Calafiori is also falling into that category of Tomiyasu now, where he is so unreliable. For me, it's not so much of what he offers on the pitch. I think what he offers on the pitch is great, but we don't see it enough. And so our marquee signing in the summer is nowhere to be found. He's injured just as much as Tomiyasu is. And it's just wild, it's just wild. So yeah, I think, crazy, just craziness. But anybody that's surprised that we went out today, I think is just pretending. BroPro says Arteta and the forward signings name me a better duo, and dud forward signings name me a better duo. Easy says ego. Where did that come from? If you don't think that he has an ego, then that's fine. We can agree to disagree. Waleed says the season where we needed to level up and go big and go for it, we bought 2 fraud squad players. Our complex says Calafiori is injured 4 times since he signed. Side says, I would say Havertz is the worst player who wears the Arsenal jersey and Arteta should go. O'Malley says, we will buy another left back, don't worry. TB says Havertz ain't a striker and he's not a midfielder, so what is he? Shaking my head. Arteta really effed up and doesn't want to admit it. Theo says Jesus value tanked, Zinni value tanked, Vieira value tanked, Havertz value inflated and tanked. We need to open our eyes about Mikel Arteta. He is what he is, a rookie coach, point blank, period. So yeah, OG is saying that I said that we don't need any more signings. Anybody who's actually watched my channel, can you actually go into the comment section and let OG know the truth? Because anybody saying that I said that we don't need any more signings either doesn't understand English, clear English, or just wants to pretend like I'd never said that so that you can go in on me for no reason. So people that have been here for a long time, my tried and true, my people that have been subscribed to the channel for a while, tell OG what I actually said this past summer, how I crashed out multiple times, said that they needed to, lay in the bed that they made because obviously we needed signings. And in the January window, the only thing I've said about signing is that we obviously need them, but we will not get them because the club is not serious. So OG, clearly you don't listen, or you just want to be, first of all, also you could never tell me what I said. Just no way. It's just ridiculous. And I'm not the problem. Sorry. You guys will try to make me into the problem. You'll try to make anybody like either I'm too toxic positive or I'm too negative. I am not the problem because I didn't miss my penalty today. I didn't miss, a chance today. I wasn't on the sideline coaching. So before you get into the comment section and try to blame me for everything, I didn't play today, so it's not on me. BroPro says we don't have Florentino Perez, who can't sleep without thinking about winning a title. OG says, give me a minute. I'll be back with the timestamps in the video name. Go ahead, because I've literally never said we don't need any signings. Be serious. The Arsenal Perspective says, Jess, hello, permission to rant. David says, this is so low, losing to 10 men when we had all the advantage, including a penalty in normal time. And also, United looked dangerous still. And it wasn't even like, I expect a team like United that's really good on the counterattack to have moments on the counterattack to hurt us. I always expect that. The problem is that there was no excuse for them to be so dangerous on the counterattack when we weren't even throwing men forward. We didn't have 8 guys in the box desperate to score a goal, and then they were going 1v1 against Gabriel and Saliba. They were going 3v5 against us with our DM and 4 defenders. There's no excuse. Like, they looked really, really dangerous still, and it wasn't even like we were peppering them. They were very comfortable. They weren't on the ropes, really, and it's just wild to me. Kwame says, Arteta has only won 2 cup ties, and 1 was against Oxford United. This team is finished. Arteta has been suspect in cup competitions. We know this. We haven't been to any finals since the first season that he was here. We went to one semifinal, this year, and we're going out, so his he is a decent league manager where he can get us to, but other than that, like, we're not good in cups, we're really not. Usamar says we need an infusion of energy and confidence like Abba brought us in January. MD says, hate to say it, but is the case of the players getting burned out on the Arteta way? Have they just stopped getting motivated by him? I mean, these are questions that I've been asking for weeks now, and nobody wants to even talk about it because because you can't look at players and exactly know what they're thinking. So it's really hard to project on things that you see, but I don't see an energy and an excitement to play this season. And whether that's because, the wind was taken out of their sails early by all the red cards or, the injuries or whatever it is, but I just expect a team to still be able to get up and fight, especially you play for Arsenal Football Club. The expectation is to have everybody fighting and not just going through the motions. And I'm not saying that everybody is going through the motions. I think Gabriel, Saliba, Timber, Miles Lewis-Skelly, these players are playing out of their skin almost every single game. Whether they get it right every game is yet to be seen, but there's never been really a time where I thought, you know what, they're just going through it. I can't lie. I do think some of our attackers are just kind of like, oh, no. It's not going to work out for me today. And personally, like, I don't know if they just don't believe in what the manager is telling them or they're just not motivated, but 5 years and 3 failed conquests, you can say, 2 failed title races and a failed top 4 race. I just don't know if they do have it in them anymore, especially when in the last 2 seasons, you're not even playing fun football. You are playing some of the worst football in the top 10 in terms of effectiveness, in terms of, dynamism and energy and fun and actual attack. You're playing some of the worst football in the top 10. And so I don't think they're nice boys. They're never going to down tools on the manager. These are not Ozil and Aubameyangs and players like that will down tools. They're not that. But will they just drop the shoulders and drop their heads and play shit and just kind of go, yeah, they will. There's nothing motivating them. They probably don't think they're going to win anything. There's injuries, out the ass, and there's nobody that can take their position. They're comfortable, so yeah, it's crazy, O'Malley says Wolves play better football than us. Jerome says Kai single-handedly ruined our wage structure. He's blocking us from signing quality attackers. At least Sterling tries to take people on. I mean, Sterling, I actually think was good today. The bar is low, so for anybody that's like, and again, sorry, but the bar is low. But that's how bad our attack is that what he offered and what a 17-year-old in Nwaneri offered was like gold dust to us. The need for just attackers that can create their own moments, that can get past their man, that take shots, take good shots, is so important. Wayne says, don't be satisfied, guys. This is Mikel Arteta after the Everton game in May. Honestly, I don't be listening to Mikel Arteta that often, because he just says whatever is the right thing to say. He doesn't say what's actually happening. He says the right thing, So, of course, at the end of the season, he's going to say, don't be satisfied. But he also rarely ever talks about winning trophies or, I mean, as bad as Ange is at times, he at least put his balls on the table and said, I win something in my second season. When have you ever heard Mikel Arteta said, we're going to win something this season, or I'm going to win something this season? You could never, like Arsene saying we're going to go the whole season without losing a game and then doing it. Arteta could never. He always talks around it, but he never really promises trophies. He kind of just, whatever. And I just think that kind of lack of aggression and lack of like confidence and ballsiness trickles down through everything, because it trickles down in the players that you recruit, because you like to recruit players that have the same temperament as you, which, players that work hard, but, aren't really like the best players you could possibly get. And definitely players that aren't going to rock the boat, it trickles down. And so that's why I never remove Arteta from the conversation, because you can't remove Arteta from the conversation. Everything comes down from the manager. He is the leader. In any company, it goes from the top down. And so the Cronkies are culpable, the recruitment is culpable, the manager is culpable, everybody is culpable. And I think when you're building a team in your image, and your image is not somebody that talks about trophies like you're going to win them, and isn't ruthless when you need to be, and isn't confident all the time, and, is not somebody that really walks the walk, I'm not surprised that your team doesn't have it. No coach that actually knows, that actually wins things, is going to buy Havertz and then double down in the summer. It's just ridiculous. AJ says Arteta is now one trophy from a possible 19. Sack him now. King says, Jess, would you take him out now or wait for the summer to get a new manager? I just think you wait till the summer. I think my biggest concern now is top four, because we're not going to win any of the other trophies. But if we fall out of the top four now and we go through some nonsense through the summer, we'll never recover. I just fear that other teams are going to improve. And you got the likes of Newcastle and Chelsea that are really solidifying themselves as like top four type teams. You have Aston Villa, who are also pretty aggressive. And then you have like the people that have already been there, like Man City and Liverpool. That leaves us on the outside if we're not serious. And so I just think we need enough stability to focus on the league. I think we should just focus on the league now and just make sure that, we have no other choice but to focus on the league, but just make sure you finish in top four, because if we lose Champions League now, these guys are gone. These Salibas and them are gone, TB says top four. It's always been top four just since the summer ended. The Arsenal perspective says we will have to finish in the top four and then move on. Yeah, we need to keep things as steady as possible. MD says Theo agreed, but Arsene always went with the cheap option even when we were challenging. The biggest difference between Arsene and Mikel is that Arsene never got the amount of money that Arteta got, but Arteta's talent ID is significantly worse. Arsene had less to work with, but had better talent ID. So it's like we never get the two. We need excellent talent ID, and we also need the money to get to where we want to go. You cannot do what we're trying to do on a shoestring budget, but you also can't do what we need to do buying the players that we buy and continuously buying at left back. Because trust and believe we will be in the market for a left back this summer again. No Tommy, you're going to sell Zinchenko. Kivior is not the answer. Calafiore is not the answer. You can't expect to run a 17-year-old in a position that really he should be playing in midfield, if we're honest. We're going to be buying another left back. So those two things need to marry up. You need to have somebody of Arsene's level of talent ID, and you also need the money that Arteta has been given. And we're missing the mark. We're missing the mark. So, yeah, I'm not saying Arsene is pure and perfect, but I am saying that, at least he won things. We can't say that he didn't win anything. let's see. I'm getting some super chats. I'll read those in just a second. Christopher says Wenger could build an attack. Let's see. TB says this manager is the second highest paid manager in the league. How and why he hasn't won anything of major? Because he's only 5 years into his tenure, and he had one really good season, and they had decided that he was the second coming of Wenger, and then gave him that title without him actually. If he had won in 2022, 2023, I could understand it more, but it was a catastrophic collapse, and we also didn't get into any finals and went out of every cup pretty badly as well. So I think the way that they've propelled him into this position doesn't really make sense. And now we're paying the consequences because they gave him everything he wanted in the summer after we first challenged. And that was such a pivotal summer after losing such an important piece of the puzzle in Xhaka. And we've been basically paying for that since then. Talent ID is so important, and Mikel doesn't have it. He has it when it comes to defenders, but he really doesn't have it when it comes to forward on. I mean, he inherited Xhaka and hasn't been able to replace him properly, you know? So if he didn't have Xhaka to begin with, I don't know what he'd fucking be doing, you know? It's crazy. Darwin, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, this has to come down to Arteta and recruitment. Kai is hot trash. Martinelli is useless. Rice is not meant to be a left 8. Sterling and Jesus, soft. They're soft. Calafiori is behind Skelly, and he ruined Saka for F's sake. I mean, I don't know how anybody can't look at the manager, and I just feel like, you know, anytime that you question him in any sort of shape and form, even from like just a general thing, you know, outside of calling him names and stuff like that, not really going in on you, Darwin, but without, even if you just even attempted to just broach the conversation just a little bit, you get thrown back. Like, how dare you? He's broken all these records. I don't care about the records because the records never added up to a trophy. No one's going to care that we were the best team in 2024. No one's going to care that, you know, we had the best away record last season, or, you know, nobody's going to care about those things. And honestly, in the last 2 seasons, when you look at if you want to talk about metrics and stats and things like that, the underlying metrics last season didn't have the actual stats, and the underlying metrics didn't have many of our attacking players in them. Meaning, like, beyond Saka, who even last season had more of a game or more of a season of persevering beyond performances, no one else really was in those, like, you know, golden boot conversations or assist conversations or anything like that. Everything was like, but in 2024, but for the entirety of the season, our attacking players are not getting into those conversations. And so amidst the stats that tell us that we're this amazing team and we're good in 2024 and all that kind of stuff, a lot of that has been due to a really good defense that can no longer carry a really poor attack. You know, so the stats that fit your narrative are always the ones that you'll talk about. And even if you want to say that we're the best team in 2024, I think that is even more damning, because to be the best team in 2024 and not win anything is actually the story. It's not that we're such a good team, but we're unlucky. No, you know, so it's just, you have to look at the manager. You have to look at the manager and ask questions. And now people are backing away and blaming Edu and blaming the Cronkies and stuff. But I don't think that it's just them. Do I think it's scary that they stopped spending the moment that we got into top 4? Yes, I do. I think that we could be seeing the beginning of another slide, because they don't seem to be able to keep spending to keep us there and to get us further up. They're like, okay, now we've gotten you to a place where you're a top 4 team. Now work on scraps. That's just not how it's going to go, you know? Especially when you can't get it right the first time. If we had really good recruitment, we could work on a shittier budget, because not only will we be buying good players to sell on, like the players that we brought in, even if they didn't work out, we'd get decent fees for them. We'd also be able to get left back right the first time, get left center mid right the first time. And then if you don't get as much money as we did in the past, we would still be able to operate. We can't operate now. They're not giving him any more money. And the players that we have now, how are we going to sell Jesus in the summer? He has to go in order for us to bring in somebody because his wages are so high. This is like, I mean, I know some people don't like to think further ahead, but my brain has been shut off from the season for so long that all I can think about is the future, and it's not looking good. Jesus with a long-term injury almost solidifies the fact that we will not be able to sell him. So how are we going to bring in a striker if the Cronkies are 1 in, 1 out? It's not looking good, you know? Talent ID, like NSB says, talent ID, man does not have any. It's so important. Big Smoke, do not speak to me about no new thing. There are a lot of people that have propped up Havertz to be something that he's not. And I feel like that's also the reason why he gets so much hate. And if your expectations of him have been skewed because of a half of a season at forward, then you fell into the trap. You should not be surprised by what you're seeing if you've watched him over the last 3 seasons, you know? And he's not a terrible player, but at best, he's a squad player for us. And on our highest wages, that's how he becomes the biggest issue. Samuel says, why on earth would they give him more money when they see how he spent it? I mean, the last window was so crazy because everybody keeps saying that we don't have problems with PSR. Fine. But we genuinely were in a 1 in, 1 out scenario. A 1 in, 1 out scenario. They are not giving the 115 million that we were getting for 3. Because I think for like 3 summers rolling after the Thomas Partey, Gabriel window, Arsenal were at least giving Arteta 100 million to start off with. And then the summer after we first challenged, 200 million. They're not giving him that anymore. We had to sell Nketiah to get someone in, to get like Marino. You know how insane that is? But listen, a lot of people were saying that window was fine. Saying that window was fine. It was cute. So yeah. Hulu says, hey, why are those guys talking about you a couple days ago like they know you? They hate in y'all industry is crazy. I mean, I feel like people want to like bang you. They want to blam you, you know, after with no real evidence. Like anybody who actually watches my streams knows that I'm usually as unbiased as I possibly can be. Being a fan, it's really hard to be unbiased, right? But I try to be as unbiased as possible. And I think I pretty much sit maybe closer to the pragmatic or pessimistic side, maybe a little bit further to that side. But I have given the manager a lot of time. I was really critical on the window. There's a lot of evidence of it, you know, so and I was cooked for it. You know, I was cooked for saying that Liverpool were better than us within like the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. It was obvious, you know, so it could never be me. Like I could never be the one that, you know, was the toxic. Could never, you know, you guys know that I've tried, especially with the manager, to be as patient as I could be. And I think even last season I caved even a little bit and was like, yeah, but the situation and the context, and we were 2 points behind, and he really like fixed it at the back end of the season. So I felt like, you know, I even gave him that. This season, he had to win something. He has to, you know, so I don't feel any type of way, you know, it can never be me. I tried. Francis, thank you so much for your super chat. Says we are the worst attacking team. We are really poor attacking wise. I genuinely don't think people are deeping it. Let me see, what time is it? Let me make sure, because y'all, I'm not missing this Real Madrid Barcelona game. Let me just check. I think they're on at 12. Ain't no way. 11. Okay, so we got 30 minutes. I'm not missing real football because of Arsenal. Please. We are really poor attacking side. We're not able to create sustained pressure. Guys are scared, they're not confident. And if you notice the way that we attack now, we have like 2 midfielders. We have the DM and Odegaard. And in the left back when we decide to invert, which we don't as much sometimes. Sometimes we invert a lot and other times we don't. And usually when you invert with, a fullback, it's less optimal. It's like suboptimal to actually having a midfielder in there. And I think Marino touched the ball like 16 times in the first half or something like that. And the way that people go in on Marino, I get it. He wasn't the answer, but people are very like disingenuous when the issue with left center mid is not Marino. It's the way that it's being played. And it's one less attacker in the team, one less midfielder, one less attacker, one less creative person in the team. You lose so much in the way that the role is being played now. You think back to 2022, 2023, which wasn't perfect, but if we had built upon having 3 actual midfielders, and I mean, we had an actual midfielder coming in from left back that was giving us an advantage in midfield, and also we had a center forward that was dropping in. That's a lot of midfielding that has been left. We went from basically in possession 5 midfielders to 2. Do you know how fucking insane that is? Think about it. In possession now, we have like 2.5 midfielders in there. The left center mid is nowhere to be found, and sometimes the left back inverts, sometimes they don't. 2 years ago, Zinchenko, Xhaka, Partey, Odegaard, and Jesus were acting as midfielders. Oh, and you had a firing Saka and a firing Martinelli. And people are wondering why we're not as good at attacking wise. We can't create overloads anywhere. We're not in any sort of advantage anywhere. The only place where we have an advantage is in defense because we defend more than anything else. People are surprised and they're just like, it's just because Marino is shit. You guys have seen 6 players play in that position. 6. ESR, a player that a lot of you guys fucking love. Vieira, a player that you guys hate, but is also like quality little attacking player. You've seen Marino play there, Rice play there, and Trossard. That's all I can think of right now. Maybe even Waneri a little bit in preseason. But you've seen a shit ton of players play in that position. No one looks good, and we never look like we have an advantage in midfield. We're never popping it around quickly. It never feels like we have an overload. But it's popular to just shit on Marino. It's popular to shit on Kai in midfield. It's not their fucking fault. It's that the role is shit. It's not their fault. Francis says, Martinelli is useless. Our attack is trash. We are predictable. Without Saka, we can't win games. Defense concedes cheap goals. The manager has to go. Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with, some of this stuff. I do think Martinelli is funny because as he wasn't great today, Martinelli. So I don't want people to think that I'm saying that he was like amazing, because I know people will shut off if they think I'm going to say that he was good today. But he was a lot more effective, especially in that first half, coming central and running in behind. And it frustrates me to see that, because obviously he got that one chance where he probably should have finished. Odegaard hits it in behind for him, and he takes an extra touch. And then he scored that offside goal. It tailed off towards the back end of the game. But to see us operating like that, when Arteta's went a whole year and a half with him doing shuttle runs on the touchline, fucking infuriates me. Because you know that this guy is only good in the box. We know he's not going to get past his man. He's not creative. He's not somebody that you particularly want crossing in the ball either, because he's not a great crosser of the ball. So you have to get him fucking central. You must. And to see Arteta able to do it in this game infuriates me, because you could have been doing this. And maybe Martinelli would not be useless right now, as Francis has said. He is actively coaching us worse with bad attacking players. Make it make sense. Martinelli was not amazing today, but he was getting in such better positions than he ever has. Why can't you do that all the time? Why? Why can't you do it all the time? Why not? Why not? Why not? I don't understand it. Vig says Arteta's job was saved by Saka and ESR. He's a coach at best. He's no manager. Nostradamus says, why the fuck did Jorginho not take the pen in normal time? I don't know. Kai probably would have missed it now thinking back, but Jorginho probably should have taken it. Just Phil says, all Arsenal and Arteta needed to do last summer was invest in their attack, a center forward in particular, but in typical Arsenal fashion, they didn't. And I still cannot, as much as people are, our attack is so poor that I really do think people feel like we're in that just buy our Van Dijk and our Allison era. We're not. Because basically Liverpool, you would think we're like the inverse of us, where they had the great attack already because they were playing with they had Coutinho at first, and then they got Firmino, and they got Mane and Salah. So they had like their more Moneyball signings up front. And what they needed to invest in was a world-class center back and a world-class goalkeeper to complete their team. And that's what they did. We have regressed from that. The 2022-2023 season was the season to go get our Allison and our Van Dijk in our forward positions. Now we need way more than that. And because we need way more than that, there's no way that we're going to be able to just go get the Isak. There's no way we're going to be able to just go get, Reinders. There's no way we're going to be able to do that. We need to get 5 or 6 players because we have undone the good work that was done to build us up to that point. So yeah, Sesko at this point would help us. As much as people are like, he's not good enough, we're not going to be able to just go get an Isak and nothing else. Because God forbid, even though we know we won't be able to afford him, if you bring in an Isak, he will be injured for half the season and you won't have shit. You'll have the same team. And bringing in Isak and then not having him for half the season because he's always injured is wild. Would be a wild ride. We need like 5 or 6 players now. And I'm usually not hyperbolic, but I was looking at our team and I was like, we genuinely need 5 or 6 players now. We went from two players needed to like 6. That's fucking crazy. That's crazy. Brian, thank you so much for your super chat. Says this team is psychologically broken. We need a new leader, new players, and a new mentality. Arteta out, Kroenke out, half of these players out. No says if a good coach, why we lose? If I don't know what this means. Sorry, babe. Sumna says facts. Liverpool could attack. You are allergic to scoring. Owen says Havertz is the worst Arsenal signing in the history of the club. It was a really, really, bad signing in terms of the ripple effect that it's had. Anybody with eyes can see that it's had a very bad effect on us. Felix says Arteta needs to look at himself in the mirror. The transfer window opened on the 1st. No intent of buying players. These are the results. And I think Arteta has wanted us to buy players in this January window. He's called for the club to kind of like invest. He doesn't do it in like a way where he'll cause friction because, he doesn't want to cause friction. And that's why the Kroenkes like him, because he's not the type of manager that'll do like a Conte or, he's not going to do a Jose Mourinho, like call out people like right in your face. He's going to kind of go around the houses like he always does. And, he saying that we haven't invested the same way other teams had by saying that that's what you get when you have quality up front, sly ways of saying that we need more. But he had a chance to bring in a really good attacker with 65 million and he didn't do that. So, you were dead set on making Eddie Nketiah a fantastic player because you back your coaching and you put him on a high ass wage. We should have got rid of Eddie instantly. Eddie is not the type of player that any other manager would ever have doubled down on. And he doubled and tripled down on him. His talent ID is very sus. The Checo says the type of result that gets you a panic buy like Rashford, I don't even think we'll panic buy. Owen says Arteta is paid 15 million not to create friction. Arteta will never question the Kroenkes, which, yeah. Odegaard's miss is damaging. It was, and it's unacceptable not to finish that penalty. Again, that's the difference between us and the best teams. When we get lucky, we never take advantage of it. When a team fucks up at the back and all we have to do is just kick it in the back of the net, kick it over, or kick it wide, or take too long, we get a penalty we don't deserve. We don't smash it in the back of the net. I mean, it's just that penalty was just like the culmination of just this season, and it's unacceptable. And in a game where I thought he was playing relatively well, in a game where I thought he was playing relatively well and better than what he had been playing in the last couple of weeks, all of that was undone by not just having the moment. And from that moment, I mean, it was pretty obvious we were going to go out, you know? Saida says, can someone explain to me why some of our fans think Artetta is a genius? Yes, he's a good coach, but I think he's being... Am I mute? Why are you guys saying I'm mute? Give me 1 second. Hello, hello. Oh, you guys can hear me. You guys can hear me. I had to check. I was like, I'm not on mute. Sorry. Can you guys not do that though? Like, if I'm actually not on mute, can you not be like weird and say that I am, because it's ruining the show. No offense, like, you know. Um, so yeah, I think, I don't know why they think he's infallible, and he has such a cult following in our fan base that I just think we're very soft as a fan base, like in terms of like being able to see things from an objective view. We're very, we only see it with rose tinted glasses. And as a football fan, you do have to have an element of, this is going to sound harsh, but it's the best possible word to use. As a football fan, you have to have an element of delusion. You need to feel like the best possible thing can happen to you, or else what's the reason? Why would you ever want to be a football fan? Like 99% of us will be disappointed as a football fan, right? As not all of us are Real Madrid fans, but to go this far and not see the clear problems that have been created by giving a manager that's very much so a novice so much power. And I wouldn't be surprised. The Kroenkes not giving him more money has to be a little bit of a, let's back up a little bit, because we've given him a lot of money. And so technically they don't know anything about football. So if they give Mikel the amount of money that they've given him, they would expect to win something by now, So I feel like they've gone as far. They went big in that one season and decided, okay, from here on out, you should be able to operate. You should have brought in players that are, good for, you could sell on, you should be able to keep their value up and kind of keep this self-sustaining model. Cause that's what they want. At the beginning of the project, they wanted to inject a little bit of cash into the project and then get to a self-sustaining model once we got into the top four. And so now we're seeing that happening, and the alarm bells are going off now, because we're going to genuinely struggle to sell any of the players that we have that we need to sell. Jesus, Zinchenko, Kivior, we're going to struggle to sell some of these players, Vieira, for any decent amount of fees. And that money is going to have to be used to bring in top quality, and God forbid we don't finish in the top four, So I don't know why they think he's infallible. The Kroenkes don't know shit about football. So they just think they know their kind of football. So they think bringing a young manager, a young coach that has a lot going for them, do a little bit of money ball, and then hopefully it'll work. And we'll get you one marquee signing or two marquee signings, and that should push us over the line. We haven't pushed over the line, Douglas says, did anyone notice Saliba's face during the shootout? It was saying a lot. I didn't watch it. I came and set up the stream. I didn't need to watch it. I knew we would go out. Vig says, how are we going to sell 29? We won't be able to. Owen says, the problem is the Cronkies won't trust another manager like they did Arteta for a while. We won't see another manager given 800 million again. We should have never went away from that structure. We should have never went away from the structure where we had a strong CEO and a strong director of football, or a strong talent person and a coach. We should have never went away from that structure. To me, that structure is the kind of structure that almost everyone else has, to a certain extent. Lower down the table, you have less power. Higher up the table, I think they give the coach a little bit more, especially if they've been successful, a little bit more leeway. But no one has a structure like us. And there's no reason why in the top section of the table, we're playing some of the worst football. We're playing some of the worst football. And it's just wild to me. It's wild. Like, we need to go back to the structure that we had under Emery and just find the right coach for it. There was nothing wrong with that structure. Top talent, because say what you want about Mislintat, he brought in better talent than they brought in this area, in this era, especially because we can't seem to not overspend to get good talent. And even when we do overspend, sometimes the talent is not that great, right? And so say what you want to say about Mislintat. He had a better talent ID than anybody that exists in the club now, and a strong CEO and a coach that just needs to coach is the best structure for Arsenal, not whatever we're doing now, Big says, should have stayed at Highbury. This Emirates move, big time curse. Chris says, Saliba had the look, seen it before, seen it on Cess, RVP, Alexis, etc. Well, if we lose him this summer and he forces a move, I don't know what to tell you. That is, because we're not going to be able to replace him. Arteta would never be able to identify a Saliba. He would never want a Saliba. He would have never went to Saint Etienne and bought him early and sent him back on loan and knew that he had a world-class talent center back chilling, developing. He would have never done that, ever. As much as Martinelli has fallen off of a cliff, even that level of talent ID we don't have in the club. And so it's whatever, we've seen this before. Of course I'm disappointed, you guys. Like, I know some people will be like, oh my gosh, you just don't give a fuck. I do, but not enough to be upset about something that I've seen probably 3 times in my lifetime. Anybody that's been around, I feel like this is also why the Dan Pottses, maybe me, the Turkishes, the Curtises, whatever you make of them, I think because maybe we're a little bit older than some of the fans, we've actually witnessed what a good Arsenal team looks like and what it feels like. And the frustration around moving to the Emirates and stuff like that, I think it's just, I don't think some of our fans have ever seen as good of a team as the one that we saw in 2022, 2023. And that's where the attachment to Mikel comes. But I genuinely need you guys to hear me that team was good. And that might be the best team that we've seen in the last 10 years. But it's not even the best team that I've seen in the Emirates era. And it's definitely not the best team that I've seen since being an Arsenal fan. That team should have won the league. And it didn't, So I just feel like, I get where it comes. I get where it comes from. And I get where, the love for Mikel comes from, because it's probably the first time that you've ever really liked a team. But genuinely, we're so far away from where we need to be. So yeah, New Music says the frustration is more so because we knew what we needed to push over the line, but Arteta seems just to do the opposite. New Music says 07, 08 team was just as good as 2022, 2023. It was, in terms of the talent level, it was. And yeah, but 2022, 2023 was great. It's our last version of a really good Arsenal team that will go down as history as really, really close, but we just let it fall apart because we didn't go out and do what we needed to do. And it's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate, Chris Frazier says, speaking of an older fan, you're 100% correct, Jess. These fans are going to learn, and I'm sad they have to learn this lesson like this. Yeah, that's why I try not to be so upset, because I realize that we all have different experiences of this, of this club. And some people really only value Mikel because the first thing that they saw was like a washed arson. And so, you attach yourself to the manager, but this is not anywhere near where we need to be, So yeah. Jordan, thank you so much for your super chat, says, we know Arteta is not going to be sacked. Exactly. And this is why, like, if we had the type of club like Chelsea, I would be like, okay, well, he'll get sacked eventually and then we'll start over and that's fine. But he's not going to get sacked. The project is built around this manager and his ability to become a world-class manager. They have banked everything on him to lead us to the promised land. And so that's the biggest frustration, is that now the Cronkies have turned off, the water. They've turned off the resources. They've shut it off. And they're also not going to sack the manager. So we could go another year, another season or so, just now starting to lose the players that, to me, are more important than him. Because we could replace Arteta. Arteta, to me, is not as good as people make him out to seem. There are other managers out there that are attainable to us if we give a fuck, that could get us into top 4, which is essentially all Mikel has really done for us. He's gotten us into top 4. 2 failed title races, he's made us into a top 4 team. Other managers could have done that, even probably with less, So the most important thing is being able to keep the Salibas and the Sakas, because we'll never be able to replace those, ever. We'll never be able to replace it. We'll never be able to find somebody like Saliba. We won't be able to get him, So, yeah. Finally found a level-headed stream. Everyone else is milking the situation for views. Yeah, I mean, but let everybody, let the online people tell you that I'm just out here trying to get clicks and stuff like that. I'm genuinely not. I just tell it how I actually see it. And if you don't like what I'm saying, fair enough. But I think we're in a pretty bad situation. But I wouldn't go as far to say that all of our players are like the shittiest players on the planet and all this kind of stuff. I just think we've regressed enough where it's obvious that we've made some mistakes in the last 18 months and we're not quick to change it. Think about City. They knew that they made a mistake letting Julian Alvarez go. At the time, I thought it was a mistake. I was like, one striker and it's Haaland at that, and Haaland's great, but in some games you're going to need something different, or you want to play 2 strikers up front, especially with young players on the wings now. They fixed their problem in less than 6 months. They sold Julian Alvarez in the summer and are buying Marmoush now in December or January. So it's like 6 months, whatever. We will go 3 or 4 seasons before we figure out that we need to not have Havertz starting for this club. That is the difference between elite clubs and bad clubs. Bad clubs take too long to fix the problem. They see something that's not working and they double down. They're slow to fix things. City will be right back at the top next season. They will, because they're not going to allow this to fester long enough for them to fall off completely. We will, Let's see. Errol says, just breaking news. Jesus has injured his knee and it doesn't look good. He's out for weeks. Yeah, I think so. That it's definitely out for weeks. I think I said at the beginning of the stream that when you're off on a stretcher and you're covering your face, it's bad. I don't think they just took the stretcher for no reason. He instantly put his hand up. And again, this season is just a consequence of all the bad decisions that have been made, because unlike last season, where some of his mistakes, he was able to paper over the cracks with the players playing well, or, the odd, Declan Rice coming in and saving him against Chelsea or saving him against Man United. He doesn't have that anymore. He doesn't have players saving his ass anymore. He can't just play, the team. Last season at the back end of the season, everything was kind of working out for us and we kind of made it work. anytime we get a solution, it breaks down. And I just feel like sometimes the lesson has to be so obvious that it slaps you in the face. We are literally in the midst of a January transfer window where we could solve some of the problems that we have. Our main goal scorer is out. The guy that came in and had a purple patch is injured. The guy that was, came in and scored a goal that 17-year-old old got injured. What is it going to take for people to realize that this club is not moving like a top club? They're moving like amateurs and clowns, and they're literally in a position where they could fix it, and they will not. Because trust and believe, if Winery had not got injured, they would be running that 17-year-old into the ground. They would be. They'd be so happy to run him into the ground because it would mean that we didn't have to spend any money. We didn't have to fix it. Internal solution. Jesus started scoring some goals. Internal solution. Great. We got him going. It's not enough. You still needed to go out into the January transfer window and get something done. And you didn't. Nostradamus says, did Trossard reject a contract extension offer? I don't think so. I don't even know if any of that is even true, that he was offered anything. We'll know soon enough, but yeah. IEC says, I'm done with the season. We can't win the Prem and no hope for the Champions League. MD says, me and my son going to Cosm for the Spurs derby. I've gone from looking forward to it to dreading it. Listen, I looked at the tickets and I was like, we could do Spurs. But then I told my mom we're going to do Aston Villa. And even that, I don't think it's going to be a great game, because after Spurs, we have Aston Villa, because we had 5 games at home. So this is what, our second game at home or something, maybe our third, I don't know. No, it's our second game at home in a row. So good luck to you and your son. I hope you have a good time, but I will be at the Aston Villa one, but I'll be watching like this because wow, it doesn't look good. Theo says, we gave City a direct rival 50 million for Jesus. By the way, he gave us 6 months of good football. Who is scouting these players? And listen, like, who would have thunk it that if you buy your rivals, leftovers, let's say, that we're giving them money to improve while we get worse. We gave Chelsea 65 million and they went out and got Cole Palmer. I'm not saying we would have got Cole Palmer because, one, we wouldn't have been able to see the talent because we struggle to see attacking talent, and City wouldn't have sold him to us, but we could have won out and got somebody else, that wasn't tainted or, rattled or whatever, because the narratives around our team, a lot of it stems from us having so many of the rivals leftovers, Jorginho, Havertz, Zinchenko, and Jesus. And I just wish at some stage, like, we would just go out and get players that have never played in the Prem before, that have no narratives, and we can just boom, But yeah, Jesus, I feel bad for him in terms of the injuries, but he was already injury prone at City. So yeah. Errol says, who do we buy now, Jess? I mean, we just won't. Hi, Mo. We just, I don't think we'll buy anybody. So the conversation around who should we get is almost like a non-starter, because they've already said, I think Ornstein has said it multiple times, that he doesn't expect us to be active. And, if we do anything, it'll be alone at best. And we want to not spend any money. They talk out of both sides. Arsenal don't have any problems with finances, but the financial strain it would take to bring in Nico Williams is why we can't bring him in. They just speak out of both sides. So I don't know if we are skint or what. Blaze asked me a question. Jess, are you Arteta out right now or after we knocked out of the FA Cup? Or maybe you mean the Carabao Cup? I mean, if Arteta doesn't win any trophies this season, he has to be moved on, mostly because it's so much easier to change the manager than it is to change the entire team. And it'll be so much more difficult to, you're not going to be able to get rid of 8, 9. You're not going to be able to scrap the whole team like a lot of people want to. And I don't think that he deserves to stay more than the players. I've seen Arteta with 80 players since he's been here. I've seen him with multiple iterations of this team, the team that he inherited, the in-between team, and then this team. So I've seen him with 3 iterations of this team, and he has not been able to get not a single one of them, except for the one he inherited, over the line for a trophy. I want to see this team with a different manager, because I'm not convinced that this team can't win anything. They're not playing anywhere near their level. He can't get them to play to their level. They're either not playing for him, or he can't get it out of them because his tactics are not good enough. I want to see them with a different manager. I don't think, like, it's like the opposite of like the Rashford effect. You know, United fans will say like Rashford has sacked like 4 managers. It's the opposite. He's had like 3 iterations of this team. He's built a team that is fully in his image, and now we want to continue to have him on when, like, let's give this team a different manager and see if that they could do something with this group. This team is not that shit. This team is not that shit. Like, it's just not. Yes, it needs a striker and it needs probably another midfielder, period. But the drop off of Martinelli, the in and outs of fitness from Saka, the drop off from Odegaard, these drop offs are not just, oh, these players are just shit overnight. It's just not that. He's not getting anywhere near enough out of the group that he has. So for me, he's more of the problem than anything. And I'd rather let them stay and get rid of the manager. But we know that that's not going to happen. So Amar says 5 years of waiting and patience from the fans. Enough is enough to do more and damages the team. I've seen people make comments about the atmosphere. From where I was sitting, which was my living room, it was dead silent in there. It was just as bad as the Newcastle game. And you could just hear a pin drop. The away fans were way louder. And the only difference was that they didn't leave before full time because it wasn't 2-0. We went into penalties. But in both games, at the end, there was boos. So I've heard. And I saw one video where I did hear the boos. Listen, on the sunny day in May, at the end of the season, he's not going to be able to sit in front of those fans and say, ask for more, dream for more. I was there during the Wolves, last game of the season against Wolves, where we beat them up 5-0 after losing the title. And I was there and I watched him say those exact same things. Hope for more, we'll do more. We go again next season. Everybody clapped. I don't think he's going to get the same reception this season. Not enough. There's not enough sun and beer, I think, to make these fans believe again. I don't. I think the tide is turning. And as Arsenal fans, I don't know if we'll boo or go with fully boo or put up signs that say Arteta out, but I do think that they'll just stop coming. Darwin says, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, change Arsenal to Saka FC. This club is finito, dead. Yeah. And can I also say something though about the Saka FC thing as well? Is that even with Saka, it wasn't enough. Whenever somebody is not here, they're the answer to the question. And there were plenty of games last season where, I'm not saying that Saka played poorly, but I'm just saying that we had questions about whether or not he was the guy last season because he was missing chances or not scoring or not stepping up or whatever. So I'm not saying that to shit on Saka. What I am saying is that nobody that's not playing right now is the answer to all of our questions or all of our problems. We fundamentally lack characters in our team. Sol Campbell said it the other day. We lack characters. We lack players that can really grab the game by the scruff of the neck and turn the game around. If Gabriel doesn't score, most of the time, we're not going to. And so there's, even as if it's Saka FC, we were losing games when it was Saka and no Odegaard. So there's not one player that solves anything. And that needs to be underlined, because really that is an argument that a certain part of the fan base will always use. Always is, yeah, but we were missing so and so. Saka he's not going to change everything for us either. He's not. He's been here all 5 seasons and we still haven't won anything despite him being in the team. So let's be serious. Not one player is changing this. Odegaard helps us be able to play our football. Saka gives us a little bit more edge in the final third. Even the two of them together playing at their best, we still didn't win shit. So let's not pretend that either one of them being here or not being here is the difference between us winning and losing. We need so much more than what we have now, you know? Madrid 1, Barcelona 0. I got to stay on now because there's almost 2,000 people watching. So we're going to continue going, and I'll just put the game on the side or something like that. But I don't want to abandon you guys just now because this is a big conversation, and we'll have many of these conversations, but it's just something that, you know, I don't want to say I told you so because it's not an I told you so moment. It's just I don't know how you couldn't have seen this coming. H says if Odegaard is the captain, then you expect that. And, you know, I said this the other day that, you know, maybe it was too harsh to say make him not the captain anymore. But I do think there would be a conversation around Odegaard if you did strip him of the captaincy. But I also think it might be best for the team because Odegaard is the type of player that I think needs to have less responsibility to perform at his best. Ever since Xhaka's gone, the responsibility for him to basically captain the midfield and be our main source of tempo control and dropping in and building up, and then also being our main creative player, he's really shrunk under the weight of that. And I think instead of looking at it as this big, you know, thing, which obviously like the media and rivals would make a big deal out of it, I just feel like a change of the captaincy could open up an opportunity for a player that is probably not suited for it to go back to their best and to give that responsibility to somebody that actually plays like a captain, somebody that actually has that personality. I think they make too big of a deal out of it. And maybe that's because like in England, the captain is just like, it's such like a important thing and you're doing the notes and you're the main guy. But for the betterment of the club, I think it's a decision that needs to be made at the end of the season because we bought a player that should probably be our captain. There's two players that I can look at that I think are probably better captain material than Odegaard, and that's Gabriel and Declan Rice. And so these are players that live for the pressure a little bit more. So if you relieve Odegaard of that, which I don't know if he'll crumble without it, but grow up, you know? Grow up. We need thicker skin. You know, this shouldn't be like the end, you know, if you're not captain anymore. But I just think he's really crumbling under the weight of expectation. And that doesn't mean that he's not a great player, but there's just certain players that carry teams and there's certain players that are not going to carry your team. And he's not going to carry the team. As much as I love him, and he's my favorite player, by the way, but I know his limitations. He's struggling a lot. BroPro says Odegaard needs to touch the ball 50 times before giving it to his nearest teammates. The one thing I will say about Odegaard, though, like, let's not be disingenuous. He put it on a plate for 3 players in that game, and none of them finished their dinner. So Kai Havertz missed a sitter. Martinelli should have scored. So as bad as he was, you know, for the penalty, let's not be disingenuous. He actually created more than enough chances for his teammates, and they didn't finish their dinner. Nico says, we got soft players. Just look at our captain. Nostradamus says we want answers. Why didn't Jorginho take the penalty instead of Odegaard? 42 penalties scored. I have no idea. South Gunner says this manager has no idea what he's doing now. He looks confused, stressed, and angered. He doesn't have the answers. And I feel like when you've never done it before, you don't have the answers. I think he's just expecting it to come together, but the answers are not. I mean, obviously they can start playing better, but I just don't think he has the answers because he's never done it before. And so there's no real excuses now. People are trying to make the excuses. They're trying to go, yeah, but you don't have Saka, you don't have so-and-so. But let's be super honest. At the beginning of the season, we weren't playing well. We weren't playing well. We weren't, you know. So we just weren't. Even before this, we weren't playing well. So he has kind of allowed the season to continue in this way. And now that we have the injuries and we're not getting any luck, those results that we were kind of scamming have gone away, and he doesn't have the answers. He cannot figure out a way to get Martinelli going. He can't figure out a way to get Havertz going. He can't figure out a way to get Odegaard going. He can't figure out a way to get that attack going. He can't. Wayne says, my fear is winning nothing and Arteta getting fired, and then the fans feeling jaded and it being toxic again. Oh, my main fear is winning nothing and Arteta not getting fired, and then the fans feeling jaded and it being toxic again. Cronkies will just sell more merchandise and shit, and it will get toxic. I just feel like the only way that things will change is if it does get ugly. And I don't want it to get that way, but if you want Arteta to go, that's the only way. And when I say toxic for Arsenal, is probably not toxic for any other team, but genuinely, like, large swaths of open seats is toxic. It is, but going back to your point, Wayne, though, this is why people are disingenuous about Arteta, is because they know this is their greatest fear, and we all know deep down in our stomach that he's not getting fired. And so because they don't want it to get toxic, they pretend like it's fine, and it's not. And this is the exact reason why people pretend like it's all hunky-dory. The exact reason that you're saying right now is they're afraid that it's going to get toxic. He'll stay and it'll get toxic because they know he's not going to get sacked. Anybody with a brain knows he's not going to go anywhere unless it gets toxic. It took them maybe 4 or 5 years after he should have gone. No, I'm being distant. No, I'm not. I mean, Arsenal should have went in 2015, and he didn't go until 2017. So the timing couldn't have been worse, because Klopp should have been our manager. But we didn't end up with Klopp because we take too long to get rid. And so, yeah, but I know that people don't want to go back to that. They don't want to go back to, whatever. But that's the only way. Like, that's the only way things will change. Kwame says, we haven't got a chance in CL. Our season is over. DAJ says, paying $65 million for Kai to come play left 8 was just crazy. We have suffered from that. Jacob says, Arteta leaving is going to make our attackers score. Great. I mean, Arteta leaving at least opens up the opportunity for, sometimes you just need freshness. Sometimes you just need something different. Liverpool were not a bad team last season, but they definitely had grown tired of Klopp's way. They couldn't do the rock and roll football anymore. They needed a more tactical look. They needed something that suited the players that they had then, because they were still playing in a way that suited the players from like 4 or 5 years before that. And so Slot coming in, he hasn't really changed a lot, but he tweaked it just enough and had a fresh set of eyes to make that team just 5% better. And that team 5% better could genuinely win the Champions League and the Premier League this season. And so this is why, and nobody thought Slot was the guy, by the way. They were saying that they needed to get Amorim, they needed Xavi Alonso. They needed these already like big gargantuan name managers in order to get it done, or to get better. And all it took was a decent manager with a different set of eyes, a good manager with a decent set of eyes, talented manager. That's all it took. And so this whole, we have to, if we can't get anybody better, it's not, at least another set of eyes could maybe look at this attack and say, okay, well, I'm going to play Martinelli more central. I'm going to give Saka more freedom. I'm going to relieve Odegaard from some of the responsibilities and let him just float in the 10. I'm going to not have my left center mid be a mirage. I'm going to actually have somebody that is a high touch player in that position that offers more creativity and more goals in that position than the ghost of a left center mid that we play with now. I'm going to stop inverting. I'm just going to make my midfielders midfield. I'm going to simplify the system, just a separate set, like just another set of eyes. That's all. That's all. A new set of eyes that could see things from a different perspective, because the perspective that Arteta sees it now is not working, SG says, are you going to apologize to Northside for being right? No, I'm not, because we never really disagreed on the fact that Arteta may not be the guy. He said he wasn't the guy. I said he may not be it, but I want to give him more time. The thing I always disagreed with Northside with is that he's hyperbolic, and I don't want to call him out that badly because we all know what he is, but I don't think all these players are terrible. I don't call these players out of their names. I don't want to be disrespectful. And the way that he goes about it makes it hard to listen to his point, because he basically acts like a child. So I'm not going to say, why would I agree with him or say, like, I'm sorry, when I've always said that I agree that Arteta's not doing good enough, or we haven't recruited good enough, but I don't think these players are as bad as people think that they are. When his method is, when we don't win, to scream and yell and call people names and be a child. And I disagree with that. So no, I'm not going to apologize to him for any reason. So you guys can stop asking. Why would I apologize to him? You know? Felix says, what's next? What do we do as fans? We need solutions. I've supported Arsenal for the last 30 plus years, and I've never seen a fall off like these when we have a chance to win silverware. As fans, I don't really know what we can do as fans, because I just saw something the other day from a match-going fan that was saying, because they sold out the section for Arsenal fans away for Newcastle. And they were saying these are the proper fans. The online fans on Twitter and YouTube are fake, and we all support the team. And I was like, that's nice, that they're supporting the team and they're going. Now, I do think that they want a night out in Newcastle, because I've heard that it's great. But that aside, as long as there's this idea that criticizing or wanting more is not supporting the team, then it's going to take us a really long time to turn the page. I think we need drastic change, very drastic change. And we won't get it as long as there's this disconnect between what supporting the team actually is. There's a large section of fans that feel like you just support whether the team is up or down, it's fine. But there's another section of the fans that actually want to win things. We all support for different reasons. Some people, especially match day going fans, have a different perspective on the club. They want to go on a day out, and they just go home and away, and so they're never going to not support. They're never going to not support. It's going to be different. But the online fans are a little bit different, because I think we don't go home and away, so we don't have that experience of that tangible feeling, because when you go, it is different. It is different. When I was going, I'd never, even when we had poor results, I've never seen us lose in person, but draws like against Brentford during the title race, I was disappointed, but not like I was when I watch it at home. So I think as long as the match day going fans keep going and feel like the way to support the team is going win, lose, or draw, and just being there, then it's not gonna turn. It'll turn a little bit, but I think it will. I don't know. I'm conflicted. I don't know if it'll turn. They're booing now, so it could turn, but will it turn enough? I don't know. So yeah, Boy says if Arteta doesn't want to sign anyone, then he should be sacked. Die Hard Gunner says bring back Wenger. Yeah. No. O'Malley says part of the problem that has led to the issues we see now is Arteta's poor usage of the squad, which has always been a conversation that I feel like falls on deaf ears, because when he doesn't use someone, the response from people that love Mikel is that that player is just not good. Because remember, this is somebody that has a very suspect talent ID and a way of play that for the last, let's call it 18 months, hasn't really worked. It hasn't, so And he's doubling down on it. He hasn't really changed. And if anything, he's gone further down the rabbit hole of that way of play, right? More pragmatic and stuff like that. So as long as we just believe that if Arteta doesn't play a player that they're shit, then it doesn't call into question his usage of the team. You know, us having to move on from Emile isn't because Emile is a shit player, but my main point for moving on Emile is that he won't play. And if you're not going to set up the team to get the most out of Emile, meaning when he comes out there, he just needs to play as a number 10 or a winger, then you should move him on, you know? But he does have a poor usage of the squad, which is why no one ever has any value when they leave Arsenal. The longer they stay, the less value that they have. And if ESR and Nketiah were not English, we would have got nothing for them. That English tax helped us a lot. You know, that there were other Premier League teams that are willing to take those players because they're English, you know? So Lamine Yamal scores. So yeah, like he has poor uses of the squad, and we just, anybody that doesn't play, we just write them off and say, yeah, but they're not good because Arteta doesn't use them. But Arteta has a really poor talent ID. You know, so why do you just assume that any player that's not playing is really bad? They're not, especially when they go to other teams and play just fine, you know? Who's actually left and done like significantly worse, especially like recently? I don't think there's been very many. Isaac says, in tough times, Arteta is starting to go into a shell of himself, highly concerning. BroPro says, he only knows to play one way. He is not like a Tuchel where he can maximize the squad strength, but talent ID, both of them are similar. Let's see. Kwame O'Malley says, this is the Willian versus ESR moment all over again. Trini says, Jess, Arteta has taken us as far as he can. And I would just love for us to be so much more flexible as a club. I think somebody said it online the other day, and I thought it was like the best point I've heard in a very long time, which is Arsenal have too many lawyers. And so there's too many people. Lawyers are naturally risk adverse. And so they are playing the Kroenkes game. And so the Kroenkes are getting more and more lawyers involved. Our CEO is like a lawyer, Tim Lewis, Richard Garlick, all lawyers. And then there's not enough football people in there. There's not enough people desperate enough to win. They want to protect the Kroenkes and make sure that they're a self-sustaining model and not go too far and not do this. And then also because I feel like some of them have fallen flat, like some of the investments that we made have fallen flat and they're not seeing a lot of return on investment. They're getting even more like strict. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's the talent ID is bad. The Kroenkes are getting stiffer with the money, and I just don't see how Arteta gets out of it. I wish that we were more flexible, like, you know, Trini is kind of alluding to, in a way where we weren't so risk adverse as a club, and we didn't see Arteta as the end all be all. And we could say, you know what, you've taken us far enough. Let's identify the right coach to take us up a level and just do it quickly. But we're not built to change the manager quickly. And we should be. After Wenger, everything that we built post that should have been in response to having a manager so embedded to the fabric of the club that we went through a collapse once he left. And we've pretty much done the same thing with a not as good manager, you know? So I wish we were more flexible, because the way that Arsenal fans are afraid to move managers is weird to me. You know, I don't see why it's such a big deal to even discuss it, because unless it's a world-class manager, there's no reason not to be discussing whether or not we should move him on. Chad says, Kai is your flat investment. You know what means? So yeah. O'Malley says, nah, they ain't changing nothing. They just gave him a new deal. Exactly. And if the rumors are right that, you know, Edu didn't want, you know, him to get a new deal and he left because Arteta was getting too much power, good on him, because, you know, first of all, he's saving himself, because, you know, you don't want your legacy to be damaged, but you want to be on the right side of history. You know, you don't want to be, you know, entangled with people that are making bad decision on bad decision on bad decision. Jerome says, I'm cool with selling ESR and Eddie, but what I'm not cool with is not replacing them. And my point is not that we should have kept ESR or Eddie. But what I am saying is that, like, in the case of somebody like ESR that's clearly talented, by the way, Arteta used Eddie more than ESR, which paints my point very, very clearly, that when ESR was fit, which for a large period of last season he was fit, Arteta didn't use him, but Eddie was starting games for us last season at center forward at the very beginning of the season. He trusted Eddie a lot more than he trusted ESR, and ESR is an infinitely more talented player than Eddie. And so it wasn't so much that ESR was not good. It's that Arteta is so stiff and so rigid with his system that he wasn't going to change anything to help him, to make ESR work. He said that ESR can't play left wing because that's not his best position, when we all know that his best period at Arsenal came when he was playing at left wing. He basically put him in a situation where it's like, if you can't morph into this like fake left center mid role that I've concocted in my head, then you can't play for us. And we know ESR is not that type of player. You know he's not going to defend. He's not good off the ball. You know that he needs to be in the pockets. You know he needs to float. And he wouldn't allow that. And so instead of being more clear, like, and this is my problem with certain people, when you talk to them, it's so hard to have these nuanced conversations because they just want to yell and scream. But ESR and Eddie are completely different cases. And you can make an argument that ESR should still be in this team. But the reason why he cannot exist in this team is not because he's shit. It's because Arteta can't figure out a way to use him. But he figured out a way to use Eddie, didn't he? So not replacing them is obviously an issue. But just the way that we speak about certain players, there's no nuance to it. It's just, if you're not playing, you're shit. If you get on the pitch and you're not perfect, you're shit. When the environment that Arteta creates on the pitch doesn't necessarily make people play better. It doesn't, their strengths are never highlighted. It's always, I'm trying to morph you into something different. I'm trying to make Kai into this left center mid thing. I'm trying to morph Rice into Iniesta. I'm trying to morph Nketiah into a Premier League, top 10 striker. Like, he's always trying to make somebody into something different. I'm trying to make Martinelli into this touchline winger. Just make their talents more apparent. Make those things better. Coach the coachable shit. So yeah, crazy. Theo says, and he trusted Holding in the run-in. They are now holding bench for Palace. Again, deficient talent ID from Arteta. Saida says Arteta is so wedded to a system that it feels like he doesn't want any one player to rise above his system and be viewed as a star. We need to add multiple difference makers in this team. And the biggest one of those narratives that's always floating around about Mikel is that he doesn't like personalities. And, I try not to tap into that too much, because I do think the personalities that we did have before were causing a disruption, and most managers would have probably moved them on if they weren't, I don't want to say falling in line, but not they weren't doing what the manager wanted them to do. Most managers would move them on. But since then, he really hasn't brought in any personalities. A lot of the players that we have are nice boys, hard workers, but they're quiet. And, sometimes you need bastards. Sometimes you need people that have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, somebody that's a little bit more like, I'm just going to do what the team needs, which is score a fucking goal. And we have a lot of players that are passing responsibility on, players that are shy in front of goal. Their shyness off the pitch is showing shyness on the pitch too. It's just, yeah. I don't know if Arteta is going to go out there and get let's see, like an example. I don't know if Arteta would go out there and get, let's put two players out there that people really like, an Osimhen or a Rafael Leao. A combined, let's call it 150 million, that for a lot of people would change how we're viewed as a football team. We'd have a number 9 that scores lots of goals, and we'd have a winger that, does the winger shit, Can you see Arteta having those players in his team? I don't know, because neither one of them seem like they're going to, Osimhen's not going to be the best defensive striker in the league, which is pretty much what they've named Havertz. Somebody that's just up there, knocking the ball while passing, kind of shit. He's not going to do that. He's also not going to pass it when he needs to shoot. Leao doesn't track back. He's not going to play like a fullback like Martinelli. And so, yeah, we do need to add difference makers. And, those aren't my two favorite players, like in terms of what I would want for the team. But I don't think that Arteta would bring those types of players. And I don't think he wants those types of players. If he did, he would have got them by now, So, Aubameyang's been gone for a long time, So I don't think, I don't think he would do those things. O'Malley says, what else sucks besides not winning anything? We no longer even play football worth watching. We literally struggle to watch 90 minutes of Arsenal football. Yeah, it's not easy to watch. Ivy says, just get me Gasparini at this point. Arteta has had enough time so far. IEC says Arteta would bench Vinny Jr. and Osimhen is elite presser, saying that he would be a good defensive striker. So yeah, Siram says, I'm scared that Saliba, Rice, Saka, Odegaard might leave soon. Honestly, I'm not really concerned about the players that I told you guys this the other day. The players that I'm not concerned about are the ones that are getting married and having kids and are settling down. I think for the most part, we have them for the foreseeable future. We have them for their prime. I don't think Odegaard's leaving. I don't think Rice is going. I think there we get their prime years. Saliba and Saka, absolutely. They can up and leave just like that. Saka said that we were going to win the league this season. He's one of the only players besides Raya that I've ever heard directly speak about winning titles, saying, I think we're going to win the league. We're going to win it this year. This is our year. I can feel it. He's the only. Raya said he wanted to win the Champions League and the Premier League last season. Most of our players don't have the cheek or the balls even to go on national television and say that they think that we can win things. Saka is the type of player that could get picked off by our rivals. I think a team like Newcastle, if they get top four and we don't, they'll disrespect us like fuck. They will disrespect us and try to, entice Saka with a huge wage and a project, because I think Saka is a Newcastle fan. So it's coming around the corner. They're going to have a hard time tying Odegaard and not Odegaard. They're going to have a hard time tying Saliba and Saka down to new deals without to overpaying. And they're just going to have to. So Saliba also said it too. I forgot about him. So yeah. Isaac says, don't worry, Odegaard is only suitable for Arteta system. Nobody wants him truly. This is interesting, Isaac, because as much as Arsenal fans don't rate Odegaard right now because he's not playing well, if he was on the market, he would definitely be wanted. Emery said Arsenal are a much better team with him. He's a special player. His peers rate him very highly. The world rates him highly. He was in the Ballon d'Or, list and all that kind of stuff. So the idea that nobody will want Odegaard is pretty laughable. There are a lot of teams that want Rashford despite what the narrative around him is online. So this is also what I'm saying. You're doing Arteta's work for him, by the way, is when you say nobody wants this player shit, it's actually undermining the idea that Arteta is not getting the most out of his team. This team is better than what Arteta is getting out of them, So if Odegaard was on the market, whether he went or not, I'm not sure. But of course, a lot of teams would want him. Of course, people would want him. It's weird that people think that these players are just that bad. Arteta really has done a number on a lot of you guys because you guys genuinely think that so many of these players are shit. Penalty for Barca. Iris says, I'm wrong about this manager. BroPro says, we're going to lose Newcastle, Villa City, Liverpool at Anfield. Yeah, take care. Isaac says, yeah, I agree, Jess. If he were on the market, teams would definitely want him. They would, but I get the overrated, thing. But, when he's playing at his best, he's considered one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. Midfielder. When he's not playing well, I get it. The narrative on him is quite low right now, so I get it. But yeah, players go through bad runs of form. I do think Odegaard could do with less responsibility, if that makes sense. So yeah. Let's see. But yeah, I'm feeling like whatever, it's ominous because Arteta is not going to go, and that's the biggest change that we need. So yeah, that's the biggest change that we need. Yeah, we need a big change. We need a really big change, a shakeup, something that the players could look forward to. Even like a managerial change could maybe help us even keep some of these players. Because if you hire a really good manager and they turn things around like Slot did, like instantly, you may be able to keep some of these players a little bit longer. But I just don't see, him going. So, and I'm sure there's plenty of people making excuses now, but genuinely, it's so much easier to move on a manager, than anyone else. So, yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Just making sure I got all the super chats. I think I did get all the super chats. So, yeah. I do want to go ahead and watch this Barcelona game because it sounds like it's getting tasty. So, yeah, make sure you guys, like the video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. There's no answers for today. There's no answers, I don't really know what's going to happen, so because I don't think anything is going to happen, but I am genuinely not looking forward to. We are food right now for every team that's coming to the Emirates in the next 3 games. So because we couldn't even beat the Evertons, so we're struggling. We barely beat Ipswich. We are in trouble. We are food. If we lose to Spurs, I do think it's going to get really nasty online for sure. But the match-going fans are very much so in the vein of the online fans they're so desperate to go against AFTV that I still think that they're being a little disingenuous and are like, well, we're just going to support the team. Don't you want to win? So isn't loving somebody wanting the best for them? I want the best for them. And I love this group because it wasn't so long ago that we loved this team. First team in a long time that we actually liked. And so I don't want to do the thing where I just throw what you guys would call the baby out with the bathwater. I really don't think we need to scrap everyone and call it quits. I think we need a big change on the sideline. That could be the difference. So yeah, make sure you guys like and subscribe on your way out. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.